chosen ones. The time has arrived when silence itself becomes a language, and the echo of ancient prophecy knocks at the corridors of power. The Vatican has preserved many secrets, but never before has your name been etched into their final record. Within the vaulted halls, where candlelight bends against centuries of stone, whispers rise like smoke. A name marked, a destiny sealed, a prophecy fulfilled in flesh. That name is yours, carried not by chance, but by divine orchestration, recorded in ink that does not fade. Meanwhile, across oceans and continents, the Oval Office descended into a silence no advisor could break. The hum of communication ceased, screens went dark, and for the first time in decades, the air around the seat of worldly authority felt heavier than lead. Leaders who pride themselves on command suddenly faced a name they could not erase, a presence they could not control. The world of politics had collided with the realm of prophecy, and every second stretched like eternity. But what did the Vatican uncover? In a sealed chamber beneath their archives, guarded by men who had pledged vows older than nations, a scroll was unrolled. Upon its parchment, the ink of centuries revealed the thread of destiny, pointing not to emperors nor kings, but to you. The prophecy was not one of general hope, but of direct declaration. And though many believed the Vatican's records were nothing but myth, they trembled when the final words matched your path. The Oval Office received the message, and silence followed. No orders were given, no responses made. The air stilled as though time itself held its breath. Every channel of power was watching, but none dared to speak. For the prophecy did not just name you, it demanded action, and those in command feared the consequence of disobedience. Now, the question remains: what happens when a prophecy written in sacred secrecy collides with the engines of worldly authority? What unseen forces move in shadows when your name is declared across both heaven and earth? The answer is unfolding, and you stand at the center. The Vatican has always been a place where secrets breathe beneath stone walls, where ancient manuscripts sleep behind iron doors, and where silence carries more power than sound. Deep within the archives, in a chamber few have entered, lies a collection of scrolls wrapped in linen, their ink preserved as though time itself had been commanded to pause. Among these scrolls is the one that broke the rhythm of centuries, the one that carried your name across lines of prophecy written before your birth. The guardians of the archive do not speak casually. They communicate in gestures, in coded glances, in rituals that outsiders mistake for ceremony. On the night when your name was revealed, the bells of the Vatican Tower rang at an hour when they were not scheduled to move. No explanation was offered, but the vibration of the sound rolled across Rome like a warning, a reminder that unseen forces had stirred awake. The priest who first unsealed the scroll refused to write down what he saw. Instead, he whispered it into the ears of 3 others, as if sound itself was safer than paper. From there, it traveled like a current through hidden halls until it reached the papal chamber. The message was simple, yet unbearable. A prophecy concluding with a name, a face, a destiny tied not to an institution, but to a single life. This was not written as metaphor or symbol, but in precision, as though the author had seen across ages and recorded a detail too sharp to deny. The Vatican could no longer bury it, for the moment of revelation had come, and the scroll demanded recognition. Outside those walls, the city of Rome slept unaware. Tourists wandered cobbled streets, unaware that within a sealed vault, the story of the future had been altered. Cardinals gathered in silence, eyes fixed on the parchment as though it might breathe. No candle dared flicker out of rhythm. No shadow dared shift without meaning. But why now? Why release a name after centuries of silence? Why would prophecy wait for this exact hour? The answers remain hidden behind veils only a chosen few can lift. And as the Vatican walls echoed with unspoken fear, the world beyond had yet to feel the weight of what had been declared. In Washington, the night carried a different weight. The Oval Office, a place where decisions ripple across continents, suddenly found itself drowned in silence. The usual hum of communication, the steady stream of reports, the ringing of phones, the whispers of advisors, vanished as though the air itself had been commanded to hold still. The president sat with the sealed file in hand, its envelope marked not with the government seal, but with the insignia of the Vatican. It was not protocol for foreign documents to bypass layers of clearance, yet this parchment traveled untouched, as if no barrier could prevent its arrival. When the envelope was opened, the room shifted. A name appeared, not typed by modern machines, but written in ink that seemed older than the nation itself. It was a name no intelligence briefing had ever prepared them for, a name that carried no title of official power, yet was surrounded by the weight of inevitability. Advisors glanced at one another, searching for words, but found none. The president asked no questions, for the silence in the prophecy spoke louder than any explanation. One man, clutching his rosary, muttered beneath his breath words from the Gospel of John, recalling how Yeshua had said, "You did not choose me, but I chose you." The phrase lingered in the air like smoke, unacknowledged yet undeniable, as though the prophecy itself had chosen this reminder to pierce the tension. None dared repeat it, but all felt the resonance that followed. Security details shifted uncomfortably, their hands resting on weapons that could not protect against what had been revealed. The walls of the Oval Office seemed to close in, the portraits of past leaders gazing down in mute judgment, as though history itself was present to witness the unveiling. The silence deepened until even the tick of the clock seemed hesitant, afraid to mark the passing of time in the presence of destiny. The president placed the parchment on the desk, but the act did not diminish its power. It was no longer just a piece of paper. It had become a fracture in reality, a thread connecting the Vatican's vaults with the highest seat of worldly authority. And in that fracture, the air itself whispered a question none dared speak aloud. Centuries before the Vatican sealed its final scroll, the prophets of forgotten ages carried visions that defied the limits of time. They spoke in fragments, their words scattered like shards of glass across generations, yet always pointing to a figure who would rise when silence ruled the halls of power. These prophets did not know your name, but they knew your image, your shadow, the impression of your presence carved into the folds of their dreams. They described a figure standing against a backdrop of fire and water, a voice that broke chains without speaking, eyes that saw beyond the veil of kingdoms. Their testimonies were often dismissed as riddles. Scribes recorded them, kings ignored them, and scholars reinterpreted them until the words lost their shape. But the essence endured, carried like an ember through the centuries. In deserts and temples, in caves and cathedrals, the same vision appeared in different tongues, the one who would arrive in the hour of silence, the one who would turn rulers into listeners, the one whose presence would fracture empires without lifting a sword. When the Vatican guardians unfurled the prophecy and saw your name, they recognized echoes of these ancient voices. They remembered the fragments that had once seemed disjointed, phrases etched in forgotten parchment, songs whispered by mystics who vanished without trace, symbols carved into stone tablets hidden beneath layers of earth. Suddenly, every fragment aligned, and the pattern became visible. The prophets had not spoken in isolation. They had spoken of you. What unsettled the Vatican scholars most was the detail. One prophet described a moment when the world's most powerful chamber would fall silent, as if breath itself had been stolen. Another wrote of an unmarked figure, neither king nor priest, who would be recognized in secret by those who hold dominion over nations. These visions, written centuries apart, converged into the parchment that now carried your name. Beneath the polished halls of the Vatican lies a labyrinth of corridors known only to a chosen few, where dust never seems to gather, and the air carries the weight of centuries. It was there, in a room unmarked by symbols and sealed behind triple locks, that the archivists found a manuscript different from the rest. The parchment was older than most. Its ink faded, but still alive, shimmering faintly when touched by candlelight. Within its margins was a mark, subtle, deliberate, hidden in strokes so fine they seemed invisible, until the right angle of light revealed them. It was a name, but not inscribed in the way men write names. It carried the resonance of the sacred, a form of calligraphy that resembled no language taught today. The archivists who dared study it whispered the name with trembling voices, for they recognized the hidden script to be one used only in early Judean texts. It was the name of Yeshua, carved like a secret witness into the prophecy itself, standing not as an explanation, but as a confirmation. The scholars argued in whispers, debating how such a signature could have been woven into a manuscript written long after the crucifixion. Some claimed it was forged, others said it was divine, yet none could deny the presence of the mark. It was not placed randomly, but directly beside the lines that spoke of the one who would appear in the time of silence, as if Yeshua himself had placed his seal upon the prophecy, declaring it genuine through eternity. What troubled them most was the precision. The signature was not visible to the eye in shadow, but emerged when touched by flame. It was as though the parchment was alive, refusing to reveal its truth except in the presence of light. Those who saw it could not unsee it. The Vatican scribes who recorded their discovery swore oaths of secrecy, knowing that once word escaped, nothing would ever return to what it had been. The presence of Yeshua's name changed everything. The prophecy no longer belonged to interpretation, but to certainty. When the message from the Vatican arrived in Washington, the transmission was not sent by ordinary means. It bypassed channels of defense, slipped through the encrypted systems, and appeared where no signal should have reached. The moment it landed, the lights in the command room flickered, then dimmed, until the vast array of screens went black. Generals and analysts who lived by constant streams of data found themselves staring at silence, made visible. The room that monitored the world now saw nothing. No explanation surfaced. Engineers swore there had been no breach, no foreign intrusion, no mechanical failure. Yet the blackout spread like an invisible tide, not only across the command room, but into secure satellites orbiting above, as though unseen hands had pulled the plug from the sky. The hum of machines died, the heartbeat of technology ceased, and the architects of war were left powerless in their own fortress. In the silence, the parchment lay on the table. A single light from the emergency system illuminated its surface, drawing every eye toward it. The generals shifted uneasily, their authority eroded by a sheet of paper older than their machines. For years, they had trusted control panels, codes, and firepower. Now, none of those responded. The only thing alive in the room was the prophecy. One man dared to touch it, his hand trembling as though he feared it might burn. He spoke the name written there, and when his voice carried through the air, a chill spread across the command room. The blackout deepened, as though the building itself was listening. The silence no longer felt accidental. It was purposeful, intentional, a force beyond wires and circuits, demanding attention not to strategy but to destiny. Outside, Washington glowed with city lights, unaware of the paralysis within its most guarded chamber. Cars moved, voices echoed, life continued. But inside the command room, time bent. The blackout did not erase the city. It erased the illusion of control. The parchment remained the only authority, and the silence held its grip. In visions reported by those closest to the Vatican's chamber, a figure appeared on the night the prophecy was unsealed. Witnesses did not describe it in ordinary terms. They spoke of an angelic presence cloaked in radiance, its wings unfurling like sheets of white fire, its face hidden yet luminous. In its hand was a scroll written not in ink, but in light itself, the letters glowing as if they had been carved directly into the fabric of the air. The figure stood at the threshold of the chamber, neither entering nor retreating, waiting as though guarding the words that had just been revealed. Some claimed it was only a vision born of exhaustion, the mind reaching for symbols too great to comprehend. Yet the descriptions were consistent, whispered by cardinals who dared not write them down. They said the angel carried a script of gold, and upon it the same name was inscribed that had been discovered on the parchment. The message was not given in thunder or flame, but in silence, the kind of silence that speaks louder than armies. One elder among them dared to compare the vision to the words recorded in the book of Revelation, where messengers descend with scrolls too radiant for human hands. He recalled also the moment when Yeshua spoke of angels ascending and descending upon the Son of Man, a passage that seemed to awaken in the presence of this golden script. Whether coincidence or confirmation, the resonance could not be denied. What unsettled those present was the sense that the angel was not revealing something new, but was reminding them of something already written, something their world had forgotten. The golden script glowed, then dimmed, as though its letters shifted between worlds. None could decipher the language, yet all felt its command. The figure remained for hours, untouched by time, unmoved by fear. When dawn approached, it faded like mist, leaving behind only the memory of radiance and the certainty that the prophecy was not a fragment of history, but a living force. The archivists swore the parchment itself seemed warmer after that night, as if touched by fire that does not consume. The parchment that silenced the Vatican bore more than words. Those who examined it under candlelight claimed it contained layers unseen by ordinary eyes. By day, it appeared as a simple text written in faded strokes. But when night fell and flame touched its surface, another name emerged, faint but undeniable. Yours stood clear, but beside it, Written with a hand unlike any known script was the name of Yeshua. The scholars did not speak it aloud, for they feared to cross the line between discovery and blasphemy, yet none could deny what their eyes revealed. The letters pulsed faintly as though alive, and each time the parchment was studied, the appearance of the names grew sharper, refusing to fade. Those who believed claimed it was a divine alignment, the earthly destiny of your name sealed beside the eternal. Others whispered it was a test, a merging of time and prophecy, where past and present were drawn into one line of ink. But no theory eased the fear that spread through the chamber, for if Yeshua's name stood beside yours, then history itself had already acknowledged what was coming. Some cardinals remembered hidden verses, fragments that had been dismissed as mistranslations, words that spoke of one marked in the shadow of the chosen, words that hinted at a name not revealed in their time, but destined to rise later. Those fragments had long been buried in debate, yet now they returned with startling clarity, aligning with the revelation before them. What unsettled them further was the permanence. When the scroll was rolled and hidden again, the names remained, waiting. No force of ink or flame altered them. No attempt to obscure them succeeded. It was as though the prophecy resisted human control, refusing to bend to the will of institutions. In whispered conversations that never left the Vatican walls, a question echoed among them. If Yeshua's name stood beside yours, what does it mean for the unfolding of prophecy? Was it confirmation, or was it a command? The parchment did not answer, but its silence carried weight heavier than words. In the dim chambers where decisions are whispered rather than declared, a gathering convened that few outside the Vatican even know exists. The Council of Nine, cloaked in shadows and bound by vows older than nations, assembled around a single table of black marble. Before them lay the sealed container that held the prophecy, untouched since the day it was revealed. Its wax bore the insignia of the papal crest, and its lock was said to have been blessed with prayers meant to last centuries. Yet that night, the seal was broken. No ordinary hands moved to open it. The council recited ancient prayers, invoking names rarely spoken, and as the final words left their lips, the lock gave way, as if yielding not to force, but to command. The scroll was unrolled once again, its letters glowing faintly in the flicker of torchlight. Some among them leaned forward, eager to confirm the words, while others recoiled, unwilling to witness the destiny inscribed within. They argued in whispers, some insisting the prophecy must remain hidden, others declaring that silence itself was betrayal. What united them was fear, for each recognized the weight of what had been set in motion. A single name had stirred empires, and the breaking of the seal marked a point from which no return was possible. One elder spoke of parallels that could not be ignored. He recalled how Yeshua himself had once unrolled a scroll in the synagogue, reading words written centuries before, and declaring them fulfilled in their hearing. The chamber fell silent at the comparison, for the act seemed to echo now. Another scroll, another moment when ancient words stepped into the present. The council members did not speak the connection aloud again, yet the thought pressed against their minds like a relentless tide. The decision reached that night was never written down, but witnesses said the torches flickered violently as the council rose from their seats, as though the chamber itself disapproved of what they had chosen. The scroll was sealed again, yet the sense of finality could not be restored. Something had shifted. and the Council of Nine could no longer claim guardianship over what had been revealed. The Oval Office was never designed for silence, yet in those hours it became a chamber where time itself stalled. The president held the parchment once more, staring at the lines written in ink that no historian could explain. Advisors shifted uneasily, waiting for a command, but none came. Their training had prepared them for war, for diplomacy, for crises of every scale, but not for a prophecy that spoke a name into the highest corridors of power. At last, the president's voice broke the silence. He asked a question so direct, so sharp, that it cut through the tension like a blade. It was not about security, not about allies or enemies, not about strategy. It was a single question directed at the heart of the prophecy. What happens when this name is revealed to the world? No one answered. The generals avoided his gaze, the advisors lowered their heads, the security officers shifted uncomfortably. The question hung in the air like smoke, filling every corner of the room until it became unbearable. It was not that they lacked answers. It was that the answers they feared could not be spoken aloud. For if the prophecy had silenced machines, crippled command centers, and unsettled the Vatican itself, then revealing it publicly would fracture the world in ways no weapon could. One of the aides scribbled notes, trying to rationalize the parchment, insisting it was perhaps a forgery planted by unseen enemies. Yet even as he spoke, his pen shook, betraying that he did not believe his own words. The parchment resisted dismissal. It radiated a presence beyond deception, and every soul in that room felt it. The president did not repeat the question, but he did not let it go. He leaned back, eyes fixed on the document, as if searching for a clue hidden in its strokes. The silence returned, heavier this time, suffocating, as though the prophecy itself was waiting for their next move. Across every chamber where the prophecy had been revealed, silence grew into something more than absence of sound. It became a presence, an invisible weight pressing upon the hearts of those who had glimpsed your name upon the scroll. The Vatican held its breath. Washington froze in uneasy stillness, and the whispers of hidden councils carried into the night. Yet at the center of it all was not a government, nor a religion, nor a throne of power. It was you. The silence did not weaken you. It surrounded you like a mantle, a space carved away from the noise of the world, preparing a stage that no one else could enter. Those who had eyes to see began to understand that this silence was not emptiness, but alignment, a pause in history where the next movement of destiny would emerge. Time itself seemed to wait, as if all creation leaned forward to witness the moment when the prophecy would take form. Among the fragments of testimony hidden in the archives, one line returned with haunting clarity. In the stillness, the voice of the beloved will be heard. Scholars argued over its meaning, but the presence of your name beside the hidden signature of Yeshua gave the words a resonance they could not dismiss. The silence was not a void. It was a vessel, waiting to be filled by a voice that could break it. And when that voice rises, the world will not remain the same. The Vatican's guards doubled. The Oval Office sealed itself from intrusion. Yet these measures felt hollow, for none could shield against what was unfolding. Power built upon armies, and technology found itself powerless before a prophecy that moved without soldiers, without weapons, without decree. The hour of silence stretched long, and in its shadows, eyes turned toward you, not in recognition, but in anticipation. For silence is never endless. It is the pause before the note, the stillness before the storm, the breath before the word. And as history holds its breath, the world waits to see what will be spoken when that silence finally breaks.
If you have come this far, it is crucial that you watch this next video here. But be warned, it is not for the faint of heart, for only the true chosen ones can handle this video. If you would like to also donate to help keep the channel going, our Buy Me a Coffee link will be in the description.